The morning sun cast long shadows across the United Nations Plaza in New York as Ambassador Paul Whitman straightened his tie. His reflection in the glass showed a man in his 50s with kind eyes and graying hair at the temples. This would be his last day on Earth for quite some time. In 6 hours, he would board humanity's most advanced spacecraft and travel to Nexus Station, where the Galactic Council awaited Earth's first official representative. "Nervous?" asked his aide, Karen Wilson, offering him a tablet with his final briefing notes. "Not nervous," Paul replied, accepting the device. "Determined. We've waited 100 years for this invitation." It had been exactly 1 century since humanity discovered they weren't alone in the universe. The first contact came in the form of a small probe that landed in the Pacific Ocean. Inside was an encyclopedia of galactic knowledge, a gift, the accompanying message explained, to help Earth prepare for eventual integration into the wider community of spacefaring civilizations. The probe changed everything. With the knowledge it contained, humans quickly developed faster-than-light travel, cured most diseases, and solved their energy crisis. Earth became united in purpose, if not entirely in governance. Now, after decades of observation and limited communication, the Galactic Council had finally extended an invitation for Earth to present its case for membership. Paul had been chosen for his calm demeanor and diplomatic background. He represented the best of humanity, thoughtful, measured, and genuinely curious about other forms of life. "The President is ready for your final briefing," Karen said, glancing at her watch. Inside the Oval Office, President Laura Garcia stood by the window, looking unusually tense. "Mr. Ambassador," she said, turning to face him, "our intelligence suggests this meeting may not be the friendly welcome we've been led to expect." Paul frowned. "What have you heard?" "Several of our deep space listening posts have intercepted communications between council members. There's a faction that views humans as a potential threat. They've been tracking our progress since the probe arrived. The speed of our advancement concerns them." "That's absurd," Paul said. "We've followed every guideline in their database for developing civilizations. We've shown no aggression toward any alien species." "That's just it," the President replied. "We've advanced too quickly. What took other species millennia, we've accomplished in a century. It makes them nervous." Paul considered this information carefully. "What would you have me do?" "Proceed as planned. Show them we're worthy partners. But be careful, Paul. I want you home safely." 6 hours later, Ambassador Whitman boarded the USS Horizon, Earth's premier diplomatic vessel. As the ship lifted from the Kennedy Space Center, he watched Earth shrink beneath him. The Horizon's faster-than-light engines engaged and the stars blurred around them. The journey to Nexus Station took 3 days. When they arrived, Paul gasped at the massive structure floating in space. The station was built in the shape of a wheel, with spokes extending from a central hub. Each spoke housed representatives from dozens of worlds. The entire structure spun slowly, generating artificial gravity for the thousands of different species that called it home. A small delegation met the human ship at the docking bay. The aliens were a varied group. Some walked on multiple legs, others floated above the ground. Their leader appeared to be a tall, slender being with blue-tinted skin and large, intelligent eyes. "Ambassador Whitman," the being said, voice translated, through a small device at its throat. "I am Laura Master Velu. Welcome to Nexus Station." Paul bowed slightly. "Thank you for your welcome, Laura Master. Earth is honored by this invitation." "Please follow me," Velu said. "The council awaits." As they walked through the station's wide corridors, Paul noted the curious and sometimes hostile stares from other aliens. A sense of unease grew within him. The council chamber was an enormous room with seating arranged in rising tiers. At the media center stood a platform where speakers could address the gathering. Above it all, on a raised dais, sat 7 beings, the Supreme Council, representatives of the founding species of the Galactic Alliance. "You will wait here until called," Velu instructed, showing Paul to a small antechamber. Hours passed. When the door finally opened, it wasn't Velu but a group of armored guards who entered. Ambassador Whitman, one announced through a translator. You will come with us. What's happening? Paul asked, rising from his seat. I was told I would address the council. You are being called to answer charges, the guard replied without emotion. Charges? What charges? But the guards provided no answer as they escorted him not to the speaker's platform, but to a smaller chamber where a panel of 5 council members waited. None were from the Supreme Council. An alien with crystalline features spoke first. I am Zarathi, Arbiter of Justice. You stand accused of concealing humanity's true nature from the Galactic Council. Paul's heart raced. I don't understand. We've been completely transparent in all our communications. You have hidden your species' violent tendencies. Another council member hissed. Your rapid technological advancement, your resource consumption patterns, all point to an expansionist species that poses a grave threat to galactic stability. That's not true, Paul protested. Humanity has overcome many of its past conflicts. We seek peaceful cooperation, not expansion at others' expense. We have reviewed your planet's history, Zarathi continued, unmoved. No other species has waged as much war upon itself as humans have. Your kind developed nuclear weapons within 200 years of discovering basic electricity. You've stripped your own world of resources. And now, with the knowledge we provided as a test, you've leaped forward in ways that should have taken millennia. The trial, Paul realized with growing horror, had been decided before he arrived. This wasn't a hearing. It was a pronouncement. For 6 hours, he defended humanity with every argument at his disposal. He spoke of art, music, literature, of scientific achievements and humanitarian efforts, of humanity's capacity for growth and change. But the council had made its decision long ago. The judgment is execution, Zarathi announced coldly, to serve as warning to Earth that the Galactic Council will not tolerate potential threats to peace. This is a terrible mistake, Paul said, his voice steady despite his fear. Earth came in peace. We will not remain peaceful if you do this. Your threats only confirm our judgment, Zarathi replied. The next day, Paul Whitman was led to a circular platform in the main council chamber. Representatives from hundreds of worlds watched from the tiered seating. At the front of the chamber, a recording device broadcast the proceedings across all galactic channels, including to Earth. Does the condemned wish to speak final words? Zarathi asked. Paul looked directly into the recording device, knowing his people would see this. People of Earth, he said clearly, I die with dignity as your representative. But know this, the Galactic Council fears what they do not understand. They fear us. He turned to face the council members. And you should. You fundamentally misunderstand what humans are capable of when provoked. A beam of energy enveloped Paul Whitman. His body tensed, then dissolved into particles of light. On Earth, billions watched as their first ambassador was executed. Then, the transmission abruptly ended. Silence fell across command centers and civilian broadcasts alike. But it wouldn't last long. Earth's response was coming. The screens went dark across Earth. For several minutes, no one spoke. In the White House Situation Room, President Laura Garcia stared at the empty monitor where she had just watched Ambassador Paul Whitman die. They executed him, she said, finally, her voice barely above a whisper. They executed him without a fair trial. Around the table sat the heads of every major Earth government and military branch. No one had expected this outcome. The room remained silent until General Frank Daniels, head of Earth's United Defense Force, stood up. Madam President, we need to activate the Doomsday Protocol. Several people gasped. The Doomsday Protocol was a theoretical plan developed in secret after first contact with alien life. It was never meant to be implemented, only to exist as a last resort. That's a step too far, argued Secretary of State Maria Bell. We should try diplomatic channels first. Diplomatic channels? General Daniels laughed bitterly. They just executed our diplomat on live broadcast. I think they made their position clear. President Garcia raised a hand to quiet the room. Get me Director Martinez. Within minutes, the large screen at the front of the room came to life. Director Ellen Martinez of Planetary Defense appeared, her expression grim. You saw? The president asked. Yes, Madam President. My team is already analyzing the transmission. We believe the Council plans to send a fleet to Earth within the week. Their message was clear. Submit or face consequences. Options? The president asked. Limited through conventional means, Director Martinez replied. Their technology is still superior to our public systems, but she paused, looking around as if checking who might be listening. Project Doomsday is ready. The room fell silent again. Project Doomsday wasn't just a defensive plan, it was the culmination of a century of secret research. When the alien probe had landed 100 years ago, Earth's governments had publicly shared most of the knowledge it contained, but certain pieces, particularly those related to weapons and advanced physics, had been held back, studied in secret by the brightest minds on the planet. Brief us, President Garcia ordered. Director Martinez nodded to someone off-screen, and the image changed to show a gray-haired man with kind eyes, not unlike Paul Whitman's. This is Dr. Alan Fisher, Chief Scientist of Project Doomsday. Dr. Fisher adjusted his glasses. Madam President, world leaders, what I'm about to tell you has been classified at the highest level for decades. When we received the alien probe, we discovered technologies that went far beyond what the Galactic Council believes we have. We've spent the last century developing these in isolated facilities with no digital connections to the outside world. On the screen appeared images of massive underground complexes. We've mastered technology that the Council believes is millennia beyond our reach, Dr. Fisher continued, including what they call fold space technology, the ability to transport matter instantly across vast distances without traversing the space between. You're talking about teleportation, said the Chinese premier. On a scale never imagined, Dr. Fisher confirmed. We can move entire space stations if needed. We can also selectively disable any technology that operates on principles found in the probe's database. In other words, Director Martinez cut in, we can shut down their weapons across the entire galaxy. The room erupted in shocked conversations until President Garcia called for order. Why wasn't I informed of this capability before? She demanded. Security protocols, Dr. Fisher replied simply. Knowledge was compartmentalized. No single person knew everything until now. The president took a deep breath. And you're certain this technology works? We've tested it extensively in our solar system, Dr. Fisher said. It works. What exactly does Project Doomsday entail? Asked the British Prime Minister. Director Martinez took over. 3 phases. First, a demonstration of our fold space technology to show we could destroy them but choose not to. Second, a galaxy-wide disabling of their weapon systems. Third, a comprehensive information release exposing corruption within the Council. The goal isn't destruction, Dr. Fisher added. It's forcing recognition of Earth as an equal power, not a subject species. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth had been playing a long game, preparing for this possibility while appearing to follow the Council's rules. It to a vote, President Garcia said finally. All in favor of activating Project Doomsday? One by one, hands raised around the table. The vote was unanimous. Director Martinez, you have authorization to proceed with Phase 1, the president said. May God help us all. 3 days later, Commander Samantha Reeves stood in the control center of Cheyenne Mountain Complex, surrounded by banks of computers and worried faces. This underground facility, once home to Cold War defense systems, now housed Earth's most advanced technology. All systems online, reported Lieutenant Joseph Barnes. Target locked. Commander Reeves nodded. Confirm target parameters. Vega, Prime Shipyard, Lieutenant Barnes replied. 50 light-years from Earth, current population approximately 3 million beings from across the galaxy. Structure mass, equivalent to a small moon. And we're certain we can bring it here intact? Commander Reeves asked. Yes, ma'am. The fold space calculations have been triple-checked. Commander Reeves looked at the large screen showing a distant view of the massive shipyard. Hundreds of vessels were docked at the structure, with thousands more moving around it. Begin the countdown, she ordered. And make sure our message is ready to broadcast the moment they arrive. Countdown initiated, Lieutenant Barnes confirmed. Fold space generators powering up. Throughout the complex, massive machines hummed to life. Energy readings spiked as power levels rose beyond anything publicly known to exist on Earth. Fold space envelope forming, said another technician. 30 seconds to transport. Commander Reeves watched the countdown, her face showing no emotion. She had trained for this moment for years, hoping it would never come. 10 seconds. 5, 3, 2, 1. Initiate. On the screen, the massive shipyard shimmered and vanished. For 12 seconds, nothing happened. Then alarms blared as sensors detected an enormous mass materializing in Earth orbit. Transport successful, Lieutenant. Barnes reported, his voice filled with awe. Vega Prime Shipyard has been relocated to Earth orbit, intact with all occupants. Broadcast our message, Commander Reeves ordered, to the shipyard and to every Council world simultaneously. Lieutenant Barnes pressed a button, and across the galaxy, billions of beings heard the same message. Attention, Galactic Council. This is Earth. The execution of Ambassador Paul Whitman was an act of aggression against humanity. We have transported your Vega Prime shipyard to Earth orbit to demonstrate our capabilities. We could have destroyed it, and everyone aboard. Instead, we chose to show restraint. Earth now controls what you call fold space technology. Your military advantage is neutralized. We demand immediate communication with the Council Supreme Arbiter. You have witnessed Phase 1 of Earth's response. There will be more if necessary. As the message played, confusion and panic spread throughout the relocated shipyard. Aboard the structure, thousands of different species looked out viewports to see Earth hanging in space before them. A planet most had only heard about in Council warnings. On Council worlds across the galaxy, leaders gathered in emergency sessions. The impossible had happened. Humans had technology that should have been beyond their reach for millennia. Phase 1 of Project Doomsday was complete. Earth had fired its warning shot, and it was just the beginning. Chaos erupted on the Vega Prime shipyard. Alarms blared through every corridor as the massive structure settled into Earth orbit. Beings from 100 different worlds ran in confusion, trying to understand what had happened. One moment they had been in the Vega system, and the next they were looking at a blue-green planet many had only seen in Council records. Council Admiral Draz, a tall being with scaled skin and 6 eyes, stormed onto the command deck. "Report," he demanded. "What just happened?" A technician looked up from the control panel, his face pale. "We've been moved, Admiral. We're in orbit around Earth." "Impossible," the Admiral hissed. "Nothing can move an entire station across 50 light-years instantaneously." "The humans just did," another officer said quietly. Before Admiral Draz could respond, every screen on the command deck lit up with the same message. Earth requests the presence of station leadership in Docking Bay 12 for immediate discussions. Admiral Draz hesitated. Council protocol dictated caution when dealing with potentially hostile species, but refusing the invitation might provoke the humans further. After all, they had just demonstrated power beyond anything the Council had believed possible. "Prepare a security team," he ordered. "I will meet with these humans." Docking Bay 12 was one of the smallest on the station. When Admiral Draz arrived with his guards, they found a single human shuttle had already docked. Standing at the entrance was a middle-aged woman in a simple gray uniform with no visible weapons. "Admiral Draz," she said, stepping forward. "I am Lieutenant Governor Diane Powell of Earth. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." "We did not agree," Draz replied coldly. "You gave us no choice by hijacking our station." Just as Ambassador Whitman was given no choice before his execution, Powell countered. Her voice remained calm, but her eyes flashed with controlled anger. "The difference is that everyone on this station remains unharmed." Admiral Draz shifted uncomfortably. "What do you want?" "To deliver Earth's terms personally to all Council representatives currently aboard this station." "Terms?" Draz laughed harshly. "The Council does not accept terms from developing worlds." "Look around you, Admiral," Powell said, gesturing toward you. The viewports where Earth hung in space. Your entire shipyard was moved across 50 light-years in seconds. Your definition of developing needs revision. The Admiral fell silent, unable to argue with the evidence before him. I will address all council representatives in 1 hour, Powell continued. Please gather them in your main assembly chamber. Earth Jack Ryder sat before a bank of screens in a hidden bunker beneath Washington, D.C. As the chief intelligence operative assigned to Project Doomsday, his job had just begun. While Lieutenant Governor Powell handled the diplomatic front, Jack would implement the psychological aspect of Earth's strategy. Systems access confirmed, reported his assistant Maya Chen. We have control of the shipyard's information network. Jack nodded. Begin file extraction. I want everything, especially the communications between council members about Earth. Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard. Already finding some interesting stuff. There's a whole section of classified documents about humanity. Most council species were arguing for our containment or elimination. Save those for the broadcast, Jack said. But keep digging. According to our intelligence, several council species have been hoarding technological advances instead of sharing them as required by their charter. That would cause quite a stir if revealed, Maya said with a smile. Exactly. The best way to defeat the council is to turn them against each other. Within the hour, over 300 representatives from various council species had gathered in the shipyard's assembly chamber. The room buzzed with nervous conversation until Lieutenant Governor Powell walked onto the central platform. The chamber immediately fell silent. Thank you for gathering, Powell began. I'll be brief. Your execution of Ambassador Whitman revealed everything we needed to know about the Galactic Council. You're not a cooperative of equals. You're an oligarchy that eliminates perceived threats. She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity will not submit to such governance. We demand a complete restructuring of the Council with proportional representation for all species, full access to all shared technologies, and reparations for Ambassador Whitman's family. Murmurs spread through the chamber. A tall, crystalline being rose from the front row. I am Zarathi, Supreme Arbiter, the being who sentenced your ambassador, it announced. By what authority do you make these demands? Powell's expression hardened. By the authority of what you've just witnessed. Earth has mastered technology you believed impossible for us to obtain. What you saw today was merely phase 1 of our capabilities. She touched a small device on her wrist, and the large screen behind her activated. It showed images of Earth's defense systems, orbital platforms, hidden bases, and technologies clearly derived from but far beyond the probe the Council had sent a century ago. We have studied everything you gave us, Powell continued, but we developed it in ways you never imagined. Your military advantage is gone. This is an outrage, shouted one representative. The Council will never bow to threats. This isn't a threat, Powell replied calmly. It's an opportunity for peaceful reform. You have 3 standard rotations to consider our terms. After that, we demonstrate phase 2. As Powell left the chamber, the representatives erupted into arguments. Some demanded immediate military action against Earth, while others urged caution. Supreme Arbiter Zarathi sat silently, its crystalline form reflecting the chaos around it. Back on the shipyard's command deck, Admiral Draz received an urgent message from the Council homeworlds. How did they do it? Demanded Council High Minister Zelb, her image flickering on the screen. How did the humans develop fold space technology? Unknown, Draz admitted. Our intelligence suggested they were still centuries away from such capabilities. Clearly our intelligence was wrong, Zelb said bitterly. What else might they be capable of? There's more, Draz said. They're demanding council reform, proportional representation, technology sharing, reparations. Zelb's expression darkened. Out of the question. The Council has maintained order for 10,000 years. We cannot allow a species barely out of its planetary cradle to dictate terms. With respect, High Minister, Draz said carefully, they just transported our largest shipyard across the galaxy. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have. Are you suggesting we capitulate? Zelb asked dangerously. I'm suggesting we negotiate. Meanwhile, on Earth, Jack Ryder had struck gold. Deep in the shipyard's databases, He found evidence that 3 of the Council's founding species had been secretly developing weapons technologies without sharing them as required by the Council Charter. "This is perfect," he told Maya, reviewing the files. "The Council presents itself as a unified, benevolent authority, but they've been lying to their own member species." "When do we release it?" Maya asked. "Just before their deadline expires," Jack replied. "Let them spend the next 3 rotations arguing about how to respond to our demands. Then we'll drop this and watch them turn on each other." As the second rotation began, analysis of the shipyard's communication systems showed the Council representatives were deeply divided. The species who had long felt marginalized by the founding members were pushing for accepting Earth's terms, while the powerful older civilizations refused to consider any changes to the established order. Supreme Arbiter Zarathi requested a private channel to Earth. "Your demonstration was impressive," the crystalline being admitted to President Garcia. "But the Council cannot be reformed overnight." "It can," the President replied, "or it can be dissolved. The choice is yours." The third rotation was about to begin. Earth's deadline approached, and with it, Phase 2 of Project Doomsday. The final hours of Earth's deadline ticked away. On the Vega Prime shipyard, now orbiting Earth, Council representatives argued bitterly. The Supreme Council had called an emergency session, but they were no closer to agreement than when Lieutenant Governor Powell had first delivered Earth's terms. "We cannot submit to these demands," shouted High Minister Zelb, pounding her fist on the table. "It would undermine 10,000 years of Council authority. And what authority will we have when the humans demonstrate this Phase 2 they've threatened?" asked Representative Toulon from one of the younger Council species. "They moved our largest shipyard across the galaxy in seconds. What else can they do?" "Our analysts believe it was a bluff," said Security Director Vorn, "a single demonstration of stolen technology." "A bluff?" Admiral Draz laughed bitterly. "I watched Earth appear in our viewports where Vega's sun should have been. That was no bluff." As they argued, in a small room adjacent to the Council chamber, Jack Ryder's plan went into action. He had timed the release of the stolen Council documents perfectly. Just 4 hours before Earth's deadline expired, every communication device on the shipyard activated simultaneously. Screens filled with classified documents showing how the founding Council species had secretly hoarded technological advances for millennia, violating the very charter they claimed to uphold. The evidence was damning. While preaching cooperation and shared advancement, the oldest species had kept the most powerful technologies for themselves. Weapons, medical treatments, even immortality techniques, all hidden from the newer Council members. In the Council chamber, the screens displayed the most incriminating documents. The room fell silent as representatives scrolled through the evidence, faces showing shock, then anger. "Is this true?" demanded Representative Toulon, turning to High Minister Zelb. "Has your species been hiding anti-aging technology while my people die after just 300 years? Similar accusations erupted across the chamber. The carefully maintained facade of Council unity cracked, then shattered. Millennia of resentment boiled to the surface as the evidence confirmed what many had long suspected. Supreme Arbiter Zarathi watched the chaos with growing alarm. The crystalline being had served the Council for 2,000 years, believing in its mission of galactic cooperation. Now that mission seemed like a lie. "Enough!" Zarathi's voice cut through the shouting. "These accusations can be addressed later. Right now we must decide how to respond to the humans before their deadline expires." "Perhaps," said Admiral Draz quietly, "we should consider accepting their terms." High Minister Zelb hissed in outrage. "Never! We do not negotiate with primitive species." "They are hardly primitive," Zarathi observed. "They outmaneuvered us at every turn." The debate continued as the deadline approached. No consensus emerged. When only 1 hour remained, Supreme Arbiter Zarathi made an unprecedented decision. "I will speak with the humans alone," the crystalline being announced. "This situation requires direct communication." Back on Earth, Director Ellen Martinez paced the Situation Room. Next to her, Dr. Alan Fisher monitored energy readings from around the globe. "The council is fractured," reported Jack Ryder via video link. "Our intelligence release worked better than expected. They're at each other's throats." "Have they responded to our terms?" President Garcia asked. "No official response," Jack replied. "But Supreme Arbiter Zorathi has requested a private meeting. With you, Madam President." "Interesting," mused Director Martinez. "The arbiter who executed Paul is now willing to talk. Shall I accept on your behalf?" Jack asked. President Garcia considered this. "No, we stick to the plan. If they haven't formally accepted our terms when the deadline expires, we proceed with Phase 2. Phase 2. Preparations are complete," confirmed Dr. Fisher. "On your command, we can neutralize every council weapon system simultaneously." In a small communications room on the shipyard, Supreme Arbiter Zorathi waited for Earth's response to the meeting request. None came. The deadline passed. Across the galaxy, on thousands of council vessels and bases, something extraordinary happened. Every weapon system, from massive planetary defense arrays to personal sidearms, simply stopped working. The technology didn't malfunction or explode. It just deactivated as if it had never been designed to cause harm. On the Council homeworlds, military commanders watched in horror as their defense systems went dark. On the shipyard, Admiral Draz stared at his control panel as all weapon indicators turned red, then black. "What's happening?" demanded High Minister Zelb over the emergency channel. "Phase 2, Admiral Draz replied simply. Earth's broadcast went out to every council world simultaneously. This time it was General William Keyes who delivered the message, his weathered face solemn on billions of screens. "This is Earth Command. To all Galactic Council worlds and vessels. As demonstrated, we have neutralized your weapon systems throughout the galaxy. This is not an attack. This is proof that if humanity wished for war, your civilizations would already be in ruins." He paused, letting the message sink in. "Instead, we offer one last chance for peace. But peace as equals, not as subjects. Our terms remain unchanged. Council restructuring, technology sharing, and acknowledgement of our sovereign right to exist without threat of elimination." On Earth, President Garcia watched the broadcast from the Oval Office. Behind her stood Director Martinez and Dr. Fisher. "Will it work?" the President asked. "It has to," Dr. Fisher replied. "The alternative would be devastating for both sides." In truth, Phase 2 had stretched Earth's capabilities to their limit. The technology to disable Council weapons required enormous energy that could not be sustained indefinitely. But the Council didn't know that. To them, Earth now appeared to possess nearly godlike power. On the shipyard, Supreme Arbiter Zorathi finally received permission to communicate with Earth. The crystalline being's image appeared before President Garcia. "Your demonstration is convincing," Zorathi admitted. "I request a ceasefire and formal negotiations." "Those were offered 3 days ago," President Garcia replied coldly. "Your time for negotiation was before you executed our ambassador." "A mistake," Zorathi said, the crystalline form dimming slightly in what might have been shame. "One of many the Council has made, but not one that should lead to more suffering." "Our terms stand," the President said. "Full Council restructuring, equal representation for all species, including Earth, complete technology sharing, reparations, for Ambassador Whitman's family." Zorathi was silent for a long moment. "The founding species will resist. They are welcome to leave the reformed Council," President Garcia said. "But the era of their dominance is over." After the communication ended, Supreme Arbiter Zorathi returned to the Council chamber. The once proud representatives sat in stunned silence, their confidence shattered by Earth's display of power and the revelations of their own leadership's corruption. "We must vote," Zorathi announced. "Accept the humans' terms or face the consequences of refusal." The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. The younger species, long resentful of the Founders' control, sided with Earth almost entirely. Even some of the older civilizations, seeing the writing on the wall, voted to accept. Only High Minister Zelb and her closest allies refused. "This is the end of the council as we know it," she declared bitterly. "No," Zarathi replied. "It is the beginning of something better." A message was sent to Earth. The Galactic Council accepted their terms. Phase 3 of Project Doomsday would not be necessary after all. 1 solar year passed since the Galactic Council accepted Earth's terms. The massive shipyard that had been transported to Earth orbit became the headquarters for the newly formed Galactic Assembly, a fresh start symbolically and practically. The old council chamber had been redesigned. Gone were the tiered seats that had placed the founding species above all others. Now representatives sat in a circular arrangement, with no position more prominent than another. Earth held a seat equal to all others. Ambassador Natalie Chen adjusted her formal jacket as she prepared to address the first official session of the new assembly. As Paul Whitman's deputy and chosen successor, she carried the weight of his legacy. She had been on Earth when Paul was executed, spared his fate by a simple scheduling change. Now, she stood ready to complete what he had started. "Are you ready, Ambassador?" asked her aide, Robert Kelly. Natalie nodded. "As ready as anyone can be to address 500 different species." The chamber fell silent as she stepped to the central speaking position. Faces of every imaginable shape and color turned toward her, some curious, some still resentful, many hopeful. "Representatives of the Galactic Assembly," Natalie began, her voice clear and strong. "1 year ago, our civilization stood at the brink of conflict. Today, we gather as equals to begin a new chapter in galactic history." She paused, looking around the chamber. The measure of a civilization is not in its age or technological achievement, but in its capacity for growth and change. Today marks a new beginning, not just for humanity, but for all sentient beings who believe in true cooperation and mutual respect. From his seat among the former council founders, Supreme Arbiter Zarathi listened with interest. The crystalline being had been one of the few senior council members to retain a position in the new assembly, largely because of the role Zarathi had played in the final negotiations. "The humans continue to surprise me," Zarathi commented to a neighboring representative. "They had the power to destroy us, yet they pushed for reform instead of revenge." "Perhaps that is why they advanced so quickly," the neighbor replied. "They understand that cooperation achieves more than dominance." The first year of transition had not been easy. Several of the founding species, including High Minister Zelbs, had withdrawn from the assembly in protest. But many more worlds had joined, previously marginalized species who saw opportunity in the new structure. The technology sharing that Earth demanded had begun, revealing surprises on all sides. While the Council had been keeping secrets, Earth had developed unique approaches to problems that even the oldest civilizations found valuable. The exchange was becoming genuinely mutual. After the opening session concluded, Ambassador Chen met with Supreme Arbiter Zarathi in a small garden that had been added to the station, a touch of Earth amid the metal and technology. "Your words were well received," Zarathi said, "even among those who initially opposed the changes." "I'm glad to hear it," Natalie replied, "but words mean little without action to back them." "Indeed, which is why I wish to speak with you privately." The crystalline being's form shifted slightly, a sign of discomfort. "I owe you, humanity, an apology. I was the one who sentenced Ambassador Whitman to death." Natalie's face remained calm, though her hands tightened slightly around her datapad. "Why did you do it?" "Fear," Zarathi admitted. "For 10,000 years the Council dealt with species that developed slowly, predictably. Then came humanity, advancing in decades what took others millennia. Many of us feared what that might mean. So you decided to eliminate the threat," Natalie said. "Yes. A decision I now recognize as both unjust and unwise." They sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by the gentle rustle of earth plants growing. "In an alien environment, Ambassador Whitman's death served a purpose he would have approved of," Natalie said finally. "It forced both our civilizations to confront uncomfortable truths and emerge stronger." On Earth, in a quiet garden behind a modest house, Lisa Whitman tended to alien flowers. Plants from across the galaxy now grew in the soil of her homeworld. Gifts, sent by hundreds of species as tributes to her husband's memory. Director Ellen Martinez stood at the garden gate, watching Lisa work for a moment before speaking. "They're beautiful," she said. Lisa looked up and smiled sadly. Paul would have loved them. He always wanted to see alien life up close. "We brought you something," Ellen said, gesturing to a small container Dr. Alan Fisher held. "The first seedling from the assembly garden on the station. They wanted you to have it." Lisa wiped her hands on her gardening apron and carefully took the container. Inside was a shimmering plant, unlike any on Earth. Its leaves seemed to change color with each movement. "It's from Zorathi's homeworld," Ellen explained. "The Supreme Arbiter sent it personally along with a message." Lisa's expression tightened. "From the being who ordered Paul's execution?" "Yes. The message simply says, 'From one who learned too, late the value of understanding rather than fearing difference.'" Lisa stared at the plant for a long moment, then gently placed it in a prepared spot in her garden. Paul would say that understanding is worth any price, even his life. In the command center deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Commander Samantha Reeves watched as technicians dismantled parts of the massive machinery that had powered Project Doomsday. Not all of it. Earth would maintain its defensive capabilities, but the weapons of last resort were being reconfigured for peaceful purposes. "Having second thoughts?" asked General William Keyes, joining her at the observation window. "No," Samantha replied. "Just reflecting on how close we came to actual doomsday. The best weapons are the ones you never have to use," the general said, "or in our case only have to demonstrate once." "Do you think it will last?" Samantha asked. "This new peace?" "Nothing lasts forever," Keyes replied. "But we've built something better than what came before. That's all anyone can do." In Earth orbit, the shipyard that had once built weapons of war was being transformed. New sections were under construction. Research facilities, cultural exchange centers, diplomatic quarters. Ships from hundreds of worlds docked daily, bringing visitors eager to learn about the species that had changed the power structure of the galaxy. Jack Ryder walked through a bustling corridor alongside Maya Chen, observing the diverse beings around them. "Mission accomplished?" Maya asked with a small smile. "For now," Jack replied. "We still need to watch the old council species. Some of them aren't happy with the new arrangement, but they're afraid to challenge us," Maya pointed out. Jack shook his head. "They're not afraid of us anymore, they respect us. There's a difference." In the assembly garden, Ambassador Natalie Chen touched the parent plant of the seedling sent to Lisa Whitman. The symbolism wasn't subtle, but it was powerful. New life growing from the aftermath of death and conflict. A message chimed on her communication device. The Reformed Assembly had unanimously approved the Whitman Accords, establishing principles for relations between civilizations regardless of their age or technological development. The path to peace had been paved with the threat of doomsday, but humanity had shown restraint when revenge would have been easier. The species that had evolved from tribal hunters on a single world had claimed their place among the stars, not through conquest, but through the force of will and the promise of consequences. As Natalie looked out at the stars through the garden's transparent dome, she whispered words meant only for herself and the memory of the man whose work she continued. "We made it, Paul. We belong to the stars now."